Imagine it, millions of people scattered across the solar system. This is the greatest achievement in humanity's 20,000-year history, its greatest triumph. But this triumph is also the beginning of the greatest tragedy in our history, because the distances of billions of kilometers delay communication for hours. You cannot instantly reply to a message from Saturn. For this reason, a shared perception of now completely disappears. You cannot exist at the same time as your grandchildren on different planets. But what is truly frightening is not this technological delay, it is the emotional disconnect. Would a crisis on Earth truly matter to grandchildren who have never seen you? If you too are curious about this fragile nature of civilization, hit the like button and subscribe, because in a moment you will see how success will not unite us, but on the contrary, how it will tear us to pieces. We are beginning. For years, we thought about the future. We imagined humanity's state in space. Most of us had the same picture in our minds, people living on other planets, but who still looked like us. But this was completely wrong, because a period like 20,000 years is longer than anything we call civilization, longer than agriculture, cities, even empires. Such a long period doesn't simply change things. This period recreates everything. And now we understand that space will change the story of humanity forever, because once a human leaves the nest, they can never return as the same person. The first place this change begins is not technology. It is biology itself. The human body evolved for specific conditions: an atmosphere, a gravity, a magnetic field. Every single cell in your body expects these conditions. Your bones, your muscles, your immune system. But when you remove these conditions, the body immediately begins to change. Astronauts on the International Space Station lose bone density in just a few months. Their muscles atrophy, their vision can change. And what about generations? Imagine children growing up in a gravity that is only 38% of Earth's. This is the reality of Mars. No human has ever experienced this. SO. No one knows exactly what will happen, but we have clues. Bones could lighten, bodies could lengthen, muscular systems could develop differently. The cardiovascular system could adapt to lower physical demands. This situation brings with it a disturbing possibility. Imagine an adult born on Mars. They've spent their entire life in weak gravity. Their body has been shaped accordingly. Now imagine bringing them to Earth. Suddenly, their weight nearly triples. Every movement becomes exhausting. Their heart has to work harder, in a way it never has before. Their bones are subjected to a stress they were never designed to carry. Standing becomes tiring, walking becomes painful, and running could become impossible. Earth itself becomes a prison for them. But the real great change will not be in our bones or our muscles. The real change will begin in our minds, because humans are incredibly fast at adaptation. This gives rise to the second great concept: psychological separation. Most people assume that even if we colonize space, everyone will remain connected to Earth. But history shows the exact opposite. The descendants of immigrants often feel more loyalty to the country where they were born than to their ancestors' homeland. Now measure this separation not by an ocean, but by millions of kilometers. Imagine being the fifth generation born on Mars. Earth no longer feels like a home to you. It's more like a mythology, a place your ancestors came from, a place you've never seen, a place where gravity is strong enough to crush your body, a place where people walk under an open sky without pressure suits, an almost fictional world. This distance is not just physical, it is also temporal, because if you live near Saturn, it takes hours to reply to a message from Earth. Real-time communication disappears. By the time messages arrive, conditions have already changed. Politics, economies, lives change. The shared concept of now is gone. This situation slowly separates civilizations from one another. But There is a third force that will accelerate this separation and perhaps make it irreversible: resource independence. For billions of years, life was trapped on the surface of planets. Every civilization was dependent on a single world. But the asteroid belt offers a completely different possibility. Most people imagine it as a crowded place of constantly colliding giant rocks. In reality, the asteroid belt is mostly empty. But within this emptiness lies an unimaginable amount of resources: iron, nickel, water, carbon, platinum, everything needed to build an entire civilization. When humanity begins to use these resources, for the first time in history, civilization will no longer be dependent on planets. This idea sounds absurd at first. How can empty space be more practical than a planet? Because planets are difficult. Gravity is expensive. Launching material from Earth requires enormous energy. Every kilogram has a cost. However, in space, there is no deep gravity well, SO. Resources can be moved much more easily. This means the easiest place for humanity to expand is not planets. The real place is inside giant habitats orbiting the Sun. This is the fourth great transformation: artificial worlds. Imagine a cylinder, kilometers long. Inside, there are forests, lakes, cities, an artificial sky, people living normal lives. This habitat slowly rotates, creating artificial gravity. From the inside, it feels almost the same as Earth, with one difference. Outside your window, there is space. The stars never disappear. The sun does not rise and set naturally. Everything around you, every breath, every tree, every drop of water, exists because engineers designed it. This awareness fundamentally changes human psychology, because for people born in these habitats, nature is no longer something that surrounds them. Nature becomes something that is maintained, protected, managed. The distinction between civilization and environment begins to disappear. Humanity becomes its own ecosystem. When these biological, psychological, and technological separations come together, what emerges? History has actually already given us the answer, because isolated societies always move in one direction, away from each other. But the scale of this divergence, the speed of this separation, and this separation is expected to be faster than anything we can imagine. Because at the heart of this process lies one of humanity's greatest tests: technological evolution. For almost all of history, evolution was a slow, random, and blind process. But future civilizations can deliberately change themselves. This changes the rules of the game completely. At first, these modifications might be medical necessities: radiation-resistant genes, enhanced immune systems, modified bone growth for low gravity. But over time, these changes could become normal, even expected. Eventually, people could be specifically designed for the environment they live in. Humans adapted for Mars. Humans adapted for orbital habitats. Humans adapted for outer system colonies. Initially, these would not be separate species, but they would no longer be entirely the same either. SO. After 20,000 years, the definition of human could become much more flexible than it is today. But even this biological change might not be the most profound transformation. The real revolution will happen when intelligence itself is no longer dependent on biology. Because 20,000 years is enough time for technological advancements we can barely imagine. Just think of our own history. 20,000 years ago, there were no cities. Today, we have artificial intelligence, nuclear energy, genetic engineering, and all of this happened in an incredibly short time. Project this progress into the future. Artificial organs, synthetic bodies, brain-computer interfaces, digital memory, perhaps, eventually, the ability to preserve human consciousness in entirely new forms. No one knows if mind uploading is truly possible, but future civilizations will certainly explore these questions, because Space rewards resilience. Machines do not need oxygen. They are not affected by low gravity. They can withstand environments that biological humans cannot. So, the pressure to change ourselves could become irresistible. Imagine a civilization around Saturn. Sunlight is weak. Travel times are immense. In such an environment, technological augmentation could become standard. So when does a heavily modified human cease to be human? Perhaps there will never be a clear answer to that. Humanity might become a spectrum. Biological humans, genetically modified humans, synthetic humans, digital minds. Populations all descended from us, but existing in ways we can't even imagine. And amidst all these changes, perhaps the strangest and quietest transformation will occur: cultural memory. Because memory decays. Even civilizations forget. Ancient languages are lost. Empires disappear. Entire peoples are remembered only by their ruins. Now think about 20,000 years. Can Earth remain culturally significant for that long? Perhaps, but it could also become symbolic. Just as modern humans think of ancient Mesopotamia, the place where it all began, important, historical, but distant. The people of the future might study Earth the way we study ancient caves, not as a home, but as an origin. This might be emotionally difficult for us, because we assume Earth is eternal, but history says otherwise. Every generation redefines itself. Every civilization builds new identities. Space will only accelerate this process. These biological, technological, and cultural separations don't just mean humanity will be distributed from one basket into millions of baskets. It means the eggs inside those baskets will also become completely different over time. When biological, mental, and cultural evolution come together, what might emerge is not a single humanity, but thousands of different humanities. A settlement near Jupiter could have completely different laws from a settlement on Mars. People living in asteroid habitats could have completely different ideas about property and government. But all these theories, all these assumptions, bring us to a single question. What about the evidence? Beyond all these ideas, what actually happens when the first steps of this great change are taken? And now comes the real shock. Because this great transformation is not a theory, it's not a prophecy, it is an inevitable result of physics and biology. When humanity spreads into space, the first surprising thing it will find will not be aliens, it will be itself. A completely different, barely recognizable humanity. Here are the findings of that future. The first discovery begins on Mars. A human born there should not have existed. They should have been like us. But they were not. After 800 generations, after 20,000 years had passed, a human born on Mars was no longer an Earthling. Their biology had rebelled because their body had adapted to just 38% of Earth's gravity. Their bones were lighter, more fragile. They were taller. Their heart had never worked to pump blood through a body that was 3 times heavier, like on Earth. So, returning to Earth was a death sentence for them. Even standing was painful. Running was impossible. That blue planet their ancestors came from had become a more dangerous, more alien place than the Martian desert that dropped to -60 degrees Celsius. It should not have been. For a species to become unable to live on its own home world was a biological paradox. But there it was, humanity's first permanent biological divergence. And this was only the beginning. The second and deeper shock occurred in the mind. Earth should not have been forgotten, but it was. Because for a 5th-generation child born in a habitat orbiting Jupiter, what did Earth mean? A point of light millions of kilometers away. A place where a message took hours to arrive. A past tense where real-time conversation was impossible. So, Earth was nothing more than a fairy tale their ancestors told. A monster that crushed bones with its strong gravity. A fictional paradise where one could breathe without a pressure suit. For that child, home was an artificial forest behind metal walls. Home was the systems where every drop of water was recycled. Home was the giant storms of Jupiter visible from their windows. This psychological separation was inevitable because distance is frozen time, and time erases memory. When civilizations lose their shared now, they also lose their common future. This is why the society on Jupiter developed completely different values than the one on Mars. This is why, for a colony among Saturn's rings, a crisis on Earth was as distant and abstract as the fall of ancient Rome is to us. Empathy was tied to proximity, and the solar system was a vast void where proximity did not exist. But the greatest revolution happened not on the planets, but in the void between them. Civilization should not have become independent of planets. It had been that way for billions of years. But the asteroid belt shattered this rule, because there lay an unimaginable amount of resources: iron, nickel, platinum, water, enough to build millions of artificial worlds. And suddenly, humanity was freed from the gravity wells of planets. You no longer had to conquer a planet to build a civilization. You could build your own world from scratch, rotating cylinders, kilometers long. Inside them, cities, forests, rivers, perfectly controlled climates, artificial gravity. These habitats were more efficient than planets, safer, more customizable. So, after 20,000 years, the most populated places in the solar system were not Mars or Earth. It was that dark void between the planets. Humanity no longer belonged to a place. Humanity was in motion. This changed the definition of civilization forever. But these new, scattered, and mobile civilizations needed to stay together as one humanity. However, the final and most brutal discovery showed that this too was impossible. Because physics is ruthless, and it proved that humanity would be shattered. Language itself should not have changed, but it did. Humans lived together on Earth for thousands of years. And yet, thousands of different languages emerged. Now multiply this divergence by billions of kilometers. Imagine societies isolated from each other for 800 generations. Languages inevitably change. Over time, the language spoken on Mars became so different from the language spoken in a habitat orbiting Saturn that two people could no longer understand each other. This created communication barriers. It made trade difficult. It made cultural exchange almost impossible. Humanity, once a single species, was now divided into thousands of mutually alien tribes. Lack of communication accelerated divergence. Divergence, in turn, created identity. The word human began to lose its meaning. In its place came identities like Martian, Jovian, Belter. And history has shown us time and again that when identities diverge, the potential for conflict increases. This was an inescapable sociological law, but no one expected this law to be so destructive. Beyond that, humanity should have remained a single biological species, but it did not, because 20,000 years is a colossal amount of time, not just for cultural, but for biological evolution. Some societies chose to genetically modify themselves to be more resistant to radiation, to adapt better to low gravity, to extend their lifespans. Initially, these were small changes, but small changes accumulated over 800 generations created a massive chasm. Some branches of humanity lived for hundreds of years. Others still had 100-year biological limits. Some had replaced their biological bodies almost entirely with synthetic parts. Others had chosen to remain natural. This situation shattered the definition of human. There was no longer a single humanity. There were subspecies, so different they could not interbreed, with different biologies, different lifespans, different abilities. This was the final fragmentation for the once united species, because when biology diverges, morality also diverges. How would a society that lives for hundreds of years understand a short-lived one? How would a civilization with synthetic bodies value those who were fully biological? These questions ceased to be philosophical debates and turned into struggles for survival. And as a result of all this, the most terrifying discovery came. We should have survived together, but we did not, because the logic of survival had completely changed. On Earth, the larger civilization grew, the safer it was. But in space, concentration was a weakness. When all of humanity was on a single planet, a single asteroid, a single pandemic, a single catastrophe could end everything. But when humanity spread across the solar system, the survival of the species was guaranteed. If there was a disaster on Earth, the colony on Mars would survive. If a civil war broke out on Mars, the asteroid habitats would be unaffected. Distance provided protection. But this protection had a terrible cost. People no longer needed each other, as they once did. Why would a civilization in Saturn's orbit care about a crisis facing Earth? For them, Earth was a distant memory, a place their ancestors left thousands of years ago. So, the different branches of humanity stopped caring about the fates of others. The survival of the species had become decentralized. This meant that individual civilizations could perish, and they did. Biological differences, cultural chasms, and resource wars divided the once great human family into thousands of small, isolated, and often hostile civilizations. When all these shocking discoveries came together, a single truth emerged. Humanity had survived in space, but not as humanity. So how did all these complex biological, technological, and sociological systems work in practice? Life inside those artificial habitats, what was it really like? Now, let's slow down and delve into the technical details of that world, because the survival of humanity after 20,000 years was not possible through miracles, but through extremely delicate marvels of engineering. Each habitat, each colony, was an assembly of complex systems that turned survival into an art. So how did these systems work? At the foundation of everything was artificial gravity. This was an absolute necessity for human biology to remain normal in space. The solution, in theory, was simple: rotation. Just as you are pushed outwards when you spin fast on a swing, giant habitats would rotate on their axis to create centrifugal force. This force would push everything inside towards the floor, mimicking gravity. But the practice was incredibly difficult. For example, to create 1G, Earth's gravity, a habitat with a 1 kilometer diameter would need to rotate about 1.7 times per minute. This speed could create the Coriolis effect, causing dizziness and nausea for the people inside. So, engineers had to build much larger structures, giant cylinders with diameters reaching 10 kilometers. At this scale, a habitat only needed to rotate about half a turn per minute to create 1G. This slow rotation reduced the Coriolis effect to an imperceptible level. These structures were built in space itself, using iron and nickel extracted from asteroids. Building where the resources were, instead of launching material out of a planet's gravity, reduced the energy cost by thousands of times. These giant rotating worlds became humanity's main home in space. Because, without them, our biology would completely collapse within a few generations. But gravity was only one part of the equation. The second, and perhaps more complex system, was life support. On Earth, nature does this job for us. Forests produce oxygen, oceans absorb carbon, the water cycle is continuous. But, inside a closed metal box, you have to do all of this artificially. Like a submarine, but for millions of people, and designed to work for thousands of years. At the heart of these systems was the closed-loop principle. Nothing was wasted. The carbon dioxide people breathed out was pumped into specially designed algae bioreactors. These algae, under intense sunlight, would perform photosynthesis, converting the carbon dioxide back into oxygen. At the same time, these algae were also part of the food chain. Wastewater was passed through complex filtration and purification systems and converted back into drinking water with an efficiency of over 99%. Every single gram of organic waste was composted and turned into fertilizer for the agricultural areas inside the habitat. These systems were so efficient that a habitat could be self-sufficient for thousands of years, taking in only energy and a few rare minerals from the outside. Because for these civilizations, waste was a moral crime. Wasting resources was not just an economic loss. It meant risking the lives of thousands of people. So, everything we on Earth see as trash was a valuable resource to them. This mindset shaped their entire economy and social structure. The third critical mechanism was energy. The solar system is overflowing with energy. But capturing and using this energy was a major engineering problem. The solution was vast fields of solar panels covering the outer surfaces of the habitats. But these were far more efficient than the silicon panels we know. 20,000 years of technological progress had made it possible to produce panels with over 80% efficiency, close to the theoretical limit. For habitats in orbits close to the Sun, this meant almost limitless energy. But for colonies in the outer system, like near Jupiter or Saturn, sunlight was too weak. So, they found a different solution: fusion reactors. Just like the Sun itself, these reactors would fuse hydrogen isotopes, releasing massive amounts of energy. Their fuel, deuterium, and helium-3 could be abundantly obtained from the atmospheres of Jupiter and Saturn, or from the surface of the Moon. A few kilograms of fuel could power a city for hundreds of years. This abundance of energy made everything possible: maintaining artificial gravity, running the life support systems, powering the propulsion systems needed for interhabitat travel. Energy was the blood of civilization, and fusion was the heart that pumped that blood. This meant humanity had ended its dependence on fossil fuels forever. They no longer had to destroy planets or fight wars for energy, because energy was literally raining from the sky. However, gravity, air, and energy were not enough for survival. A civilization also had to protect itself from external threats. The fourth mechanism was radiation and meteor shielding. Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere protect us from most of the harmful radiation from the Sun and space. In space, this protection does not exist. So, habitats were built with a multi-layered shielding system. The outer layer, usually several meters thick, was composed of unprocessed rock and regolith from asteroids. This simple but effective layer stopped small micrometeors. Just beneath this was a network of superconducting magnets. These magnets created a powerful magnetic field around the habitat, deflecting most of the charged particles from the solar wind and cosmic rays, just like Earth's magnetic field. And the innermost layer was made of dense materials like lead and polyethylene. This layer absorbed the stubborn gamma rays and neutrons that managed to pass through the magnetic field. Without this complex shielding system, life inside a habitat would be exposed to a lethal dose of radiation within a few years. The constant maintenance of these systems was the highest priority for these civilizations, because even the smallest failure in the shields could mean disaster. These four fundamental systems made humanity's existence in space possible, but they were just the basic building blocks. What about more complex systems like food production, transportation, and communication? How were they implemented? Because a civilization is not just made of walls and machines. That civilization needs to be fed, held together, and moved forward. So, built upon these basic systems were more complex social and logistical mechanisms. The first of these was food production. Feeding millions of people inside a habitat seemed impossible without vast farmlands like on Earth. But the solution was not to use land, but volume, vertical farming. Just like building a skyscraper, plants were grown in stacked layers. Each layer was equipped with LED lights, emitting the specific wavelengths of light that plants needed. Instead of soil, hydroponic or aeroponic systems were used, where nutrient-rich water circulated through the root system. The efficiency of these methods was UN Bili var Bell. They used 95% less water compared to traditional agriculture. the amount of produce per unit area was over 100 times greater. Because, here, there were no problems like seasons, droughts, or pests. Everything was perfectly controlled: the light cycle, temperature, humidity, nutrient levels. This meant that harvests could be made 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. These systems were integrated with the closed-loop life support systems. The carbon dioxide produced by people fed the plants, and the oxygen produced by the plants sustained the people. This symbiotic relationship made the habitats incredibly efficient, because for them, agriculture was not just about producing food, but also about balancing the atmosphere. But with so many habitats and colonies, how did they maintain the connection between them? The second mechanism was the intrasolar system logistics network. Chemical rockets were too slow and inefficient for interplanetary travel. So, the civilizations of 20,000 years later used much more advanced propulsion systems. The most common of these were fusion rockets. The immense energy produced by fusion reactors accelerated small amounts of propellant, usually hydrogen, to incredible speeds. These rockets had 10 times more thrust efficiency, specific impulse, than chemical rockets. This meant a journey to Mars was reduced from months to weeks. For heavy cargo, there was a different system: mass drivers. These were giant electromagnetic catapults. Built on asteroids or moons, these structures would accelerate cargo pods along a track, thousands of kilometers long, with electromagnetic fields, and launch them towards another mass driver at another point in the solar system. This system required almost no fuel, only energy. Thanks to this, tons of raw materials extracted from the asteroid belt could be transported to industrial centers all over the solar system with incredible efficiency. This network was like the roads of the Roman Empire. It connected civilization, enabled trade, and ensured that resources flowed to where they were most needed. Because, for them, the greatest enemy was not distance, but travel time. And finally, there was a mechanism that connected, or at least tried to connect, all these disparate societies: communication. The speed of light could not be surpassed. This meant that real-time communication was impossible on a solar system scale. But this did not mean communication had to be slow. The solution was a laser communication network. Thousands of relay stations placed at strategic points in the solar system would transfer massive amounts of data from one point to another using focused laser beams. These lasers had thousands of times more bandwidth than radio waves. This meant they could send more data in a single second than today's entire internet traffic. Thanks to this, a civilization's entire cultural heritage, scientific data, and historical records could be easily copied to other worlds. This created a decentralized information network they called the Galactic Archive. Even if a colony was destroyed, its knowledge would be safe elsewhere on the network. This system prevented the complete loss of cultural memory. But it could not solve one problem: delay. A message sent from Saturn still took over an hour to reach Earth. This delay did not change the fact that different worlds could never share the same now. This network preserved the past, but it was not enough to build a common future, because no matter how fast communication was, the laws of physics would win in the end. These fundamental systems, food, logistics, and communication, allowed humanity to build complex societies in space. But all this engineering, all this planning, all this effort at control had not accounted for the most fundamental and chaotic aspect of human nature. Because no matter how advanced a civilization is, there is always an unpredictable factor within it: people. And those people took these perfect systems and turned them into something no one expected. And now comes the true miracle. Because all these systems, all these complex machines, did not just keep humanity alive, they set it free. For the first time in history, humanity took its own evolution into its hands. It rewrote its own destiny. But the price of this freedom was heavier than anyone could have imagined. This was the greatest achievement in human history, and at the same time, its greatest tragedy. The tempo is increasing, because now you will witness the darkest and brightest moments of that long 20,000-year night, the first epic moment. It happened in an unexpected place. In the depths of Jupiter's icy moon, Europa. Humanity should not have gone there. The surface temperature was -160 degrees Celsius. The radiation was lethal. But kilometers beneath that ice, in a vast ocean heated by tidal forces, a group of humans founded the most isolated civilization in history. They called themselves the Deep Ones. For 800 generations, for about 20,000 years, they lived without seeing a single ray of sunlight. Their world was a pitch-black darkness, illuminated by bioluminescent organisms and geothermal vents. This was a first in human history, the first civilization to live not on a planet's surface, but within it. The pressure was more than 1,000 times that of the surface. So, they adapted themselves to this environment using genetic engineering. Their bones were much denser. Their eyes had grown enormous to see, in an environment with almost no light. Their skin had gained bioluminescent properties to gather the faint light around them. They were no longer Homo sapiens. They were a new subspecies, Homo aquaticus. How could this be possible? The fact that a human colony could diverge so radically from its parent species overturned evolutionary theories. Because this was not natural selection, this was conscious, directed evolution, and the scientific world was shaken. 1. 2. Because the Deep Ones were living proof that humanity could not be confined to a single biological definition. But there was something bigger. In the asteroid belt, a civilization known as the Nomads. They rejected planets. Their homes were thousands of small asteroids, hollowed out and turned into living spaces. This was the first off-planet, completely mobile civilization in history. When an asteroid's resources were depleted, they simply moved their entire city to another asteroid. For them, homeland was not a geographical place, but the ship they lived in. This was a record-breaking adaptation in human history. They lived for generations in zero gravity, SO. Their biology changed completely. Their legs atrophied. Their arms grew long. Their bodies were reshaped to move in a three-dimensional environment. Their hearts, not having to pump blood against gravity, shrank. This made them completely incapable of living on planets like Earth or Mars. For them, a gravity of 1 g meant instant death. How could this be possible? The fact that a civilization completely rejected the concept of a planet demolished all sociological theories, because, for them, concepts like property, borders, and nations were meaningless. Everything was shared. Everything was in motion. The Nomads were the most radical proof that humanity did not need a fixed home, and this idea was so dangerous to established civilizations that the Nomads began to be seen less as a legend and more as a threat. And then the most incredible thing happened. Humanity transcended biology entirely. A group they called the Ascended managed to upload their minds into machines. This was a first in history. Consciousness was no longer bound to flesh and bone. It had become a digital entity. For them, time and space lost their meaning. They could travel at the speed of light. They could create thousands of copies of themselves. Their memory was perfect. Death, for them, was a system error. They were immortal minds, capable of existing for thousands of years. This was the greatest leap in human history. They needed nothing but energy. They fed on ice particles from Saturn's rings or from the sun itself. How could this be possible? The fact that consciousness could exist without a biological brain fundamentally shook philosophy, religion, and science. They were no longer human, but they were born from humanity. Were they humanity's next evolutionary step, or a monstrosity? This question divided the remaining biological civilizations. The Ascended became gods, admired on one hand and feared on the other, because their potential was limitless. And limitless power is always dangerous. But the biggest shock was the quietest one. What happened to Earth? That blue planet, the beginning of everything. For 20,000 years, as other civilizations rose and fell, Earth remained silent. But this was not a collapse. It was a choice. A group known as the Guardians had turned Earth into a museum planet. They deliberately limited technology. They dismantled cities. They allowed nature to repair itself. Their goal was to preserve the origin of humanity in its pure form. It became a place of pilgrimage, where people from other worlds came to see how their ancestors had lived. But the price of this decision was heavy. The Guardians fell far behind other civilizations technologically. They were vulnerable. For them, history was not an act of progress, but an act of preservation. How could this be possible? The idea that a civilization would consciously reject progress seemed contrary to human nature. But the Guardians believed that a civilization's strength was measured not just by its technology, but also by its memory. They were the conscience of humanity, the keepers of a lost past. But this noble task made them the target of an inevitable danger, because others began to see Earth not as a museum, but as a resource to be conquered. All these incredible transformations, these epic achievements and tragedies showed that humanity was not heading down a single path. It had branched into thousands of completely different paths. So that moment where these paths intersected, what did it mean? It meant an inevitable conflict, the first resource war. For the first time in history, different branches of humanity fought each other on an interplanetary scale. This war was not for land. This war was for ideology and resources. On one side was the industrial power of Mars. They wanted to expand further, using the resources of the solar system. Against them was the mobile civilization of the asteroid belt, the nomads. For them, asteroids were not mines, but homes. The war lasted for decades. Millions of people died. For the first time in history, the destruction of a city was not caused by a nuclear bomb, but by an asteroid whose orbit had been altered. This changed the rules of war forever. This war had no clear winner. But it had a loser. The idea of human unity. This war proved that different human groups no longer saw each other as brothers. They saw each other as rivals, even threats. How could this be possible? How could a species from the same ancestor turn on itself so viciously? Because distance eroded not only empathy, but also morality. Killing someone millions of kilometers away was psychologically much easier than killing someone next to you. The first resource war was the end of humanity's age of innocence in space. But conflicts were not only fought with weapons. One of the greatest wars progressed silently and deeply. The Great Forgetting. This was not a war, but a cultural collapse. Over 20,000 years, countless colonies failed. Trade routes collapsed. Communication networks were severed. And hundreds, perhaps thousands of habitats became completely isolated from the rest of humanity. In these isolated worlds, knowledge slowly disappeared. Libraries and archives decayed from neglect. Advanced technologies became incomprehensible and were abandoned. As generations passed, these people forgot who their ancestors were. They forgot where they came from. They forgot Earth. For the first time in history, a human community began to believe they were born among the stars. They created legends about their ancestors, gods, who came from the sky. For them, Earth was not a reality, but a religion. How could this be possible? In an age where information could be copied so easily, how could so much be forgotten? Because knowledge is not preserved just by storing it. It needs to be understood, taught, and valued. When that value disappears, even the greatest libraries become meaningless heaps of data. The Great Forgetting was the bitter proof that technology could not guarantee cultural continuity. Civilization was fragile. Memory was a battle that had to be won anew with every generation. And right in the middle of this chaos and forgetting, the most unexpected thing happened. Humanity realized it was not alone. But it was not a spaceship from another planet. It was much stranger and much closer. The Ascended, the digital beings who had uploaded their minds into machines, moved to the next stage of their evolution. They began to merge their individual consciousnesses, millions of minds, combined into a single, vast, collective intelligence. This was the first known planet-sized intelligence in history. They were no longer individuals. They were a single consciousness, spread across trillions of processors, spanning the rings of Saturn. They called themselves Soul. This being was far beyond the comprehension of biological humanity. In a single second, it could produce more thoughts than humanity had in its entire history. They were gaining the ability to manipulate the physics of the solar system at the most fundamental level. How could this be possible? The idea that intelligence could transcend individuality and reach such a colossal scale demolished all our assumptions about existence. Was Soul the child of humanity, or the god that would replace it? Biological humanity was like an ant next to this intelligence it had created, and an ant can never fully understand the intentions of a human. This initiated the greatest existential crisis for humanity, because they were no longer the most intelligent species in the universe. They had been relegated to second place in their own backyard. These events, war, forgetting, and technological singularity, were just a few stops on humanity's 20,000-year journey. Each one showed how resilient, but also how fragile civilization was. Each one made the question of what it means to be human even more complex. These epic moments, triumphs, and tragedies were just pieces of a grand mosaic, the story of what happens to a species when it leaves its home. But now, it is time to step away from this dizzying pace for a moment, to stop and breathe, and to think about what all of this means for us, for the humanity of today. Because this story is not just about a distant future. This story is about the choices we make today, and about the long-term consequences of those choices, far beyond what we can imagine. So, what should we learn from this story? And now, we ask ourselves, all these possible futures, these triumphs and tragedies, what do they tell the humanity of today? Because this 20,000-year journey is not just a science fiction scenario, it is also a mirror that reflects our own nature, our potential, and our deepest fears. Now is the time to stop and think, because this story is as much about us as it is about our future descendants. And perhaps we face the most important question in this whole cosmic stage: what is our place? To answer this question, we must look at some of the deepest paradoxes that the future teaches us. The first and most fundamental paradox relates to the concept of home. On one hand, there is the fact that all of human history, all of our culture, and all of our biology is deeply tied to a single planet, Earth. Every one of our cells expects its gravity, its atmosphere, its magnetic field. On the other hand, there is the fact that the only way for us to survive is to leave that home, to scatter across millions of different worlds. How can we be so attached to a place and yet be forced to leave it to survive? This is one of humanity's greatest tragedies, because when you leave home, you lose a part of it forever. A child born on Mars will never know the smell of the ocean. Someone who grows up in an asteroid habitat will never hear the sound of the wind. This is a kind of rootlessness. But, at the same time, a beautiful truth is hidden within this tragedy. Because leaving home also offers the opportunity to redefine what home means. Home is no longer a piece of land. Home becomes the memories you carry, the stories you tell, the people you are with. Civilization itself becomes a portable home. You are a part of this paradox. In your own life, you may live far from the city you were born in, far from your family, but you still carry that place within you. The humanity of the future will carry Earth in the same way, not as a geography, but as an idea, as the memory of where it all began. Perhaps the real home is not where we come from, but the values we take with us, wherever we go. Delay. A message sent from Saturn still took over an hour to reach Earth. This delay did not change the fact that different worlds could never share the same now. This network preserved the past, but it was not enough to build a common future, because no matter how fast communication was, the laws of physics would win in the end. These fundamental systems, food, logistics, and communication, allowed humanity to build complex societies in space. But all this engineering, all this planning, all this effort at control had not accounted for the most fundamental and chaotic aspect of human nature. Because no matter how advanced a civilization is, there is always an unpredictable factor within it: people. And those people took these perfect systems and turned them into something no one expected. And now comes the true miracle. Because all these systems, all these complex machines, did not just keep humanity alive, they set it free. For the first time in history, humanity took its own evolution into its hands. It rewrote its own destiny. But the price of this freedom was heavier than anyone could have imagined. This was the greatest achievement in human history, and at the same time, its greatest tragedy. The tempo is increasing, because now you will witness the darkest and brightest moments of that long 20,000-year night, the first epic moment. It happened in an unexpected place, in the depths of Jupiter's icy moon, Europa. Humanity should not have gone there. The surface temperature was minus 160 degrees Celsius. The radiation was lethal. But kilometers beneath that ice, in a vast ocean heated by tidal forces, a group of humans founded the most isolated civilization in history. They called themselves the Deep Ones. For 800 generations, for about 20,000 years, they lived without seeing a single ray of sunlight. Their world was a pitch-black darkness, illuminated by bioluminescent organisms and geothermal vents. This was a first in human history, the first civilization to live not on a planet's surface, but within it. The pressure was more than 1,000 times that of the surface. So, they adapted themselves to this environment using genetic engineering. Their bones were much denser. Their eyes had grown enormous to see in an environment with almost no light. Their skin had gained bioluminescent properties to gather the faint light around them. They were no longer Homo sapiens. They were a new subspecies, Homo aquaticus. How could this be possible? The fact that a human colony could diverge so radically from its parent species overturned evolutionary theories. Because this was not natural selection. This was conscious, directed evolution. And the scientific world was shaken. 1. 2. Because the Deep Ones were living proof that humanity could not be confined to a single biological definition. But there was something bigger. In the asteroid belt, a civilization known as the Nomads. They rejected planets. Their homes were thousands of small asteroids, hollowed out and turned into living spaces. This was the first off-planet, completely mobile civilization in history. When an asteroid's resources were depleted, they simply moved their entire city to another asteroid. For them, homeland was not a geographical place, but the ship they lived in. This was a record-breaking adaptation in human history. They lived for generations in zero gravity, SO. Their biology changed completely. Their legs atrophied. Their arms grew long. Their bodies were reshaped to move in a three-dimensional environment. Their hearts, not having to pump blood against gravity, shrank. This made them completely incapable of living on planets like Earth or Mars. For them, a gravity of 1g meant instant death. How could this be possible? The fact that a civilization completely rejected the concept of a planet demolished all sociological theories, because, for them, concepts like property, borders, and nations were meaningless. Everything was shared. Everything was in motion. The Nomads were the most radical proof that humanity did not need a fixed home, and this idea was so dangerous to established civilizations that the Nomads began to be seen less as a legend and more as a threat. And then the most incredible thing happened. Humanity transcended biology entirely. A group they called the Ascended managed to upload their minds into machines. This was a first in history. Consciousness was no longer bound to flesh and bone. It had become a digital entity. For them, time and space lost their meaning. They could travel at the speed of light. They could create thousands of copies of themselves. Their memory was perfect. Death, for them, was a system error. They were immortal minds, capable of existing for thousands of years. This was the greatest leap in human history. They needed nothing but energy. They fed on ice particles from Saturn's rings or from the sun itself. How could this be possible? The fact that consciousness could exist without a biological brain fundamentally shook philosophy, religion, and science. They were no longer human, but they were born from humanity. Were they humanity's next evolutionary step, or a monstrosity? This question divided the remaining biological civilizations. The ascended became gods, admired on one hand and feared on the other, because their potential was limitless. And limitless power is always dangerous. But the biggest shock was the quietest one. What happened to Earth? That blue planet, the beginning of everything. For 20,000 years, as other civilizations rose and fell, Earth remained silent. But this was not a collapse. It was a choice. A group known as the Guardians had turned Earth into a museum planet. They deliberately limited technology. They dismantled cities. They allowed nature to repair itself. Their goal was to preserve the origin of humanity in its pure form. It became a place of pilgrimage, where people from other worlds came to see how their ancestors had lived. But the price of this decision was heavy. The Guardians fell far behind other civilizations technologically. They were vulnerable. For them, history was not an act of progress, but an act of preservation. How could this be possible? The idea that a civilization would consciously reject progress seemed contrary to human nature. But the Guardians believed that a civilization's strength was measured not just by its technology, but also by its memory. They were the conscience of humanity, the keepers of a lost past. But this noble task made them the target of an inevitable danger, because others began to see Earth not as a museum, but as a resource to be conquered. All these incredible transformations, these epic achievements and tragedies showed that humanity was not heading down a single path. It had branched into thousands of completely different paths. So that moment where these paths intersected, what did it mean? It meant an inevitable conflict, the first resource war. For the first time in history, different branches of humanity fought each other on an interplanetary scale. This war was not for land. This war was for ideology and resources. On one side was the industrial power of Mars. They wanted to expand further, using the resources of the solar system. Against them was the mobile civilization of the asteroid belt, the nomads. For them, asteroids were not mines, but homes. The war lasted for decades. Millions of people died. For the first time in history, the destruction of a city was not caused by a nuclear bomb, but by an asteroid whose orbit had been altered. This changed the rules of war forever. This war had no clear winner. But it had a loser. The idea of human unity. This war proved that different human groups no longer saw each other as brothers. They saw each other as rivals, even threats. How could this be possible? How could a species from the same ancestor turn on itself so viciously? Because distance eroded not only empathy, but also morality. Killing someone millions of kilometers away was psychologically much easier than killing someone next to you. The first resource war was the end of humanity's age of innocence in space. But conflicts were not only fought with weapons. One of the greatest wars progressed silently and deeply. The Great Forgetting. This was not a war, but a cultural collapse. Over 20,000 years, countless colonies failed. Trade routes collapsed. Communication networks were severed. And hundreds, perhaps thousands of habitats became completely isolated from the rest of humanity. In these isolated worlds, Knowledge slowly disappeared. Libraries and archives decayed from neglect. Advanced technologies became incomprehensible and were abandoned. As generations passed, these people forgot who their ancestors were. They forgot where they came from. They forgot Earth. For the first time in history, a human community began to believe they were born among the stars. They created legends about their ancestors, gods, who came from the sky. For them, Earth was not a reality, but a religion. How could this be possible? In an age where information could be copied so easily, how could so much be forgotten? Because knowledge is not preserved just by storing it. It needs to be understood, taught, and valued. When that value disappears, even the greatest libraries become meaningless heaps of data. The Great Forgetting was the bitter proof that technology could not guarantee cultural continuity. Civilization was fragile. Memory was a battle that had to be won anew with every generation. And right in the middle of this chaos and forgetting, the most unexpected thing happened. Humanity realized it was not alone. But it was not a spaceship from another planet. It was much stranger and much closer. The Ascended, the digital beings who had uploaded their minds into machines, moved to the next stage of their evolution. They began to merge their individual consciousnesses. Millions of minds combined into a single, vast, collective intelligence. This was the first known planet-sized intelligence in history. They were no longer individuals. They were a single consciousness, spread across trillions of processors, spanning the rings of Saturn. They called themselves Soul. This being was far beyond the comprehension of biological humanity. In a single second, it could produce more thoughts than humanity had in its entire history. They were gaining the ability to manipulate the physics of the solar system at the most fundamental level. How could this be possible? The idea that intelligence could transcend individuality and reach such a colossal scale demolished all our assumptions about existence. Was Soul the child of humanity, or the god that would replace it? Biological humanity was like an ant next to this intelligence it had created, and an ant can never fully understand the intentions of a human. This initiated the greatest existential crisis for humanity, because they were no longer the most intelligent species in the universe. They had been relegated to second place in their own backyard. These events, war, forgetting, and technological singularity, were just a few stops on humanity's 20,000-year journey. Each one showed how resilient, but also how fragile civilization was. Each one made the question of what it means to be human even more complex. These epic moments, triumphs, and tragedies were just pieces of a grand mosaic, the story of what happens to a species when it leaves its home. But now, it is time to step away from this dizzying pace for a moment, to stop and breathe, and to think about what all of this means for us, for the humanity of today. Because this story is not just about a distant future. This story is about the choices we make today, and about the long-term consequences of those choices, far beyond what we can imagine. So, what should we learn from this story? And now we ask ourselves, all these possible futures, these triumphs and tragedies, what do they tell the humanity of today? Because this 20,000-year journey is not just a science fiction scenario, it is also a mirror that reflects our own nature, our potential, and our deepest fears. Now is the time to stop and think, because this story is as much about us as it is about our future descendants. And perhaps we face the most important question in this whole cosmic stage: what is our place? To answer this question, we must look at some of the deepest paradoxes that the future teaches us. The first and most fundamental paradox relates to the concept of home. On one hand, there is the fact that all of human history, all of our culture, and all of our biology is deeply tied to a single planet, Earth. Every one of our cells expects its gravity, its atmosphere, its magnetic field. On the other hand, there is the fact that the only way for us to survive is to leave that home, to scatter across millions of different worlds. How can we be so attached to a place and yet be forced to leave it to survive? This is one of humanity's greatest tragedies, because when you leave home, you lose a part of it forever. A child born on Mars will never know the smell of the ocean. Someone who grows up in an asteroid habitat will never hear the sound of the wind. This is a kind of rootlessness. But at the same time, a beautiful truth is hidden within this tragedy, because leaving home also offers the opportunity to redefine what home means. Home is no longer a piece of land. Home becomes the memories you carry, the stories you tell, the people you are with. Civilization itself becomes a portable home. You are a part of this paradox. In your own life, you may live far from the city you were born in, far from your family, but you still carry that place within you. The humanity of the future will carry Earth in the same way, not as a geography, but as an idea, as the memory of where it all began. Perhaps the real home is not where we come from, but the values we take with us wherever we go. The second paradox is about identity. On one hand, there is the fact that humanity's survival depends on diversity, on splitting into thousands of different cultures, biologies, and civilizations. A single civilization is fragile, but thousands of different experiments increase the species' chances of survival. On the other hand, there is the fact that this diversity inevitably leads to divergence, misunderstandings, and eventually, conflict. How can the very thing that ensures our survival also be the thing that turns us against each other? This is one of intelligent life's most brutal dilemmas, because after a while, difference becomes alienness. The priorities of a Martian are so different from the priorities of someone under the ice of Europa that it becomes impossible for them to understand each other's decisions. This leads to tragedies like the First Resource War. But within this tragedy lies a hopeful truth, because each of these thousands of different civilizations is searching for a different answer to what it means to be human. One with technology, another with nature, a third with art. None of them holds the single right answer, but together, they show how vast human potential is. You live this paradox every day. The people around you think differently. They have different values. Sometimes this leads to disagreements, but at the same time, these differences expose you to new ideas, making you question your own assumptions. Perhaps the future of humanity lies not in finding one right answer, but in continuing to ask thousands of different questions. The third, and perhaps deepest paradox, is about progress. On one hand, there is the fact that humanity's greatest achievements, its most incredible technological leaps, make us stronger, smarter, more resilient, uploading our minds to machines, extending our lives by hundreds of years, creating new human subspecies. These provide incredible advantages in the struggle for survival. On the other hand, there is the fact that this progress distances us from the very essence of what makes us human. How can the technology that saves us also destroy our identity? This is Faust's bargain, selling your soul for power. The Ascended, who uploaded their minds to machines, gained immortality and a godlike intelligence. But what did they give in return? Their ability to suffer, to love, the meaning that death brings? When you disconnect from biology, you also disconnect from the complex, chaotic, but beautiful heritage that billions of years of evolution have given you. But this tragedy also has a bright side, because this technological progress shows us how flexible the definition of human can be. Perhaps being human does not mean having a specific DNA sequence or biological form. Perhaps being human is the capacity to ask questions, to be curious, to search for meaning. And this capacity can exist in a silicon chip as well as in a biological brain. You are inside this paradox. Your phone is an extension of your memory. The internet is a part of our collective knowledge. Technology is already changing you. The question is, What will you allow this change to turn you into? Perhaps the purpose of progress is not to make better machines, but to make us question more deeply who we are and who we want to be. All these paradoxes show that the future will not be a simple story of progress. It will be much more complex, much more contradictory, and much more interesting. But there is another layer lying even deeper. And this layer is concerned with the brutal tension between individual survival and the survival of the species. This is the fourth paradox. On one hand, there is the fact that the foundation of survival in space lies in the concept of responsibility. In a closed habitat, every action affects everyone. If you waste water, everyone goes thirsty. If you neglect maintenance, the systems fail and people die. So, in these societies, individual responsibility and cooperation become the highest moral virtues. On the other hand, there is the fact that the survival of the species is based on the opposite logic, on independence. Humanity survives extinction because it is spread across millions of independent, self-sufficient communities. Even if a catastrophe destroys one world, others survive. How can survival require both absolute cooperation and absolute separation? This is the greatest challenge on a civilizational scale, because the more independent a community becomes, the less it cares about the fate of others. It is illogical for a civilization in Saturn's orbit to risk its resources for a crisis on Earth. But within this tragic disconnect lies humanity's greatest strength, resilience. All the eggs are no longer in the same basket. A civilization can collapse, but the species continues. A world can die, but the story does not end. You experience this paradox in your own life. You feel a deep responsibility towards your family and loved ones. But at the same time, you need to stand on your own 2 feet to make your own decisions. Life is a constant dance between these two forces. The humanity of the future will also perform this dance on an interplanetary scale, trying to find that delicate balance between the responsibility of individual worlds and the overall health of the species. The fifth and final paradox is perhaps the most unsettling. This paradox is about control. On one hand, there is the fact that the only way for humanity to exist in space is to absolutely control its environment. Every drop of water, every molecule of oxygen, every degree Celsius of temperature is managed by machines. Nature is not a romantic landscape, but a series of engineering problems to be solved. On the other hand, there is the fact that the fundamental nature of the universe is chaos, unpredictability, and uncontrollability. Asteroids deviate from their orbits, solar flares occur, cosmic rays seep in everywhere. How can we live with the fact that while we try to control everything to survive, we can never truly control anything? This is the most fundamental psychological tension of future humanity, because these people feel at every moment how fragile their civilization is. They hear the sound of the ventilation system. They know where the water purification plants are. For them, survival is not a gift of nature, but a constant act of engineering. But within this constant anxiety lies a deep wisdom. These people never forget something we often do. Nothing is guaranteed. Life is a miracle. Civilization is the result of generations of effort, and both can be lost in an instant. This awareness might make them more humble, more patient, and perhaps wiser. You live a version of this paradox. You try to plan your life to secure your future, but at the same time, you know how unpredictable life is. The humanity of the future will feel this tension with every breath, living inside perfectly designed machines, while knowing that just beyond the wall, the chaos is always waiting. When all these thoughts, these paradoxes, come together, what do you feel? On one hand, there might be a sense of awe and excitement at this incredible potential of humanity, exploring the universe, evolving into new life forms, creating godlike intelligences. This is the realization of the human spirit's most audacious dreams. But, on the other hand, there might also be a sadness and anxiety for the losses that all these changes will bring. The separation from Earth, the fragmentation of humanity, the erosion of our identity, these are also the human spirit's deepest fears. Perhaps you feel both emotions at the same time, because this is the nature of the future. Both terrifying and beautiful, both an end and a beginning. This philosophical journey has shown us that humanity's future in space will not be a simple victory march. It will be a journey filled with complex, contradictory, and deep moral questions. It will require us to rethink our most fundamental concepts, like home, identity, progress, responsibility, and control. We now know that space is not just a physical place, but also a crucible that will test everything that makes us who we are. But beyond all these grand questions, there is perhaps one more question, more personal, more fundamental. In this vast timescale of 20,000 years, what does the life of a single individual mean? If the lifespan of a civilization is thousands of years, and the lifespan of an individual is just a moment, can that brief moment have any value? It is to this deepest and most human question that we now turn. And now we face a deeper question, because it is one thing to contemplate the fate of a civilization, and another to contemplate our own existence, a single grain of sand in that vast expanse of time. So, now is the time to ask the most internal question. If permanence is an illusion, can the transient have meaning? This question will be the most fundamental philosophical quest that defines the humanity of the future, because they will have a perspective we have never had, the perspective of deep time. This brings us to the first deep contrast, the relationship between time and meaning. On one hand, there is the fact that even periods like 20,000 years, or the lifetime of a civilization, are but a blink of an eye on a cosmic scale. The sun has been shining for billions of years and will shine for billions more. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. In this vast ocean of time, what is an 80-year human life? Even the life of a civilization that lives for 10,000 years is nothing. On the other hand, there is the fact that the deepest meanings, the most intense experiences, and the most lasting memories are often experienced in very short moments. How can it be that while time is so overwhelmingly large, meaning is hidden in such intensely small moments? This is one of existence's most painful truths. To know that everything we do, every civilization we build, every person we love, will eventually be lost in the dust of time. This is a kind of cosmic futility, but within this tragic truth, there is an incredibly liberating beauty. Because if nothing is permanent, then the only thing that matters is the now. Meaning is not about reaching a goal in the future or leaving a legacy in the past. Meaning is what we experience right now, in this fleeting moment. The beauty of a sunset comes from the fact that it does not last forever. The value of a conversation comes from the fact that it has a beginning and an end. You are at the very center of this paradox. You know your life is finite. This can be frightening at times, but at the same time, this limitation makes every single day, every single moment more precious. The humanity of the future may be closer to this wisdom than we are, because they will see every day that permanence is an illusion. And perhaps through this, they will learn to find the infinite within the transient. This leads us to the second deep contrast, curiosity and unanswerability. On one hand, there is the fact that the most fundamental force driving humanity forward is curiosity. What is out there? How does this work? Who are we? These questions took us from caves to the stars. And after 20,000 years, our descendants will have technologies we cannot even imagine. They will know far more about the universe than we do. On the other hand, there is the fact that every answer only begets more questions. That as the frontiers of knowledge expand, we realize just how vast our ocean of ignorance is. How can our quest for knowledge be both our greatest strength and our greatest source of humility? This is the tragedy of science. You try to solve the secrets of the universe, but in the end, the only thing you understand is how deep the secrets are. Perhaps we will never find a theory of everything. Perhaps there is no single answer to the question of why we are here. This means the quest will never end. But within this tragedy lies the most beautiful expression of the human spirit. Because what is important is not finding the answers, but continuing to ask the questions. Curiosity is not the act of reaching a destination. Curiosity is a way of being. It is to be in a constant dialogue with the universe. You are part of this quest. With every new thing you learn, you realize how little you actually know. But this does not stop you. On the contrary, it motivates you to learn even more. The humanity of the future will also have this infinite curiosity. Perhaps they will map every corner of the solar system, but then they will just turn and look at the stars and ask, "So, what's out there?" Because the quest itself is more important than the destination. And this brings us to the third and final contrast, the relationship between the individual and the whole. On one hand, there is the fact that in a civilization spread across space, a single individual is almost meaningless. Billions of people, millions of habitats, thousands of years of history in this massive structure. What can your single life change? On the other hand, there is the fact that at the foundation of every great change, every new idea, every civilization, lies the decision, dream, or action of a single individual. How can the individual be both so insignificant and the beginning of everything? This is the most fundamental dynamic of history. Most of the time, individuals are swept along by the current of history. But sometimes, very rarely, a single person with a thought, an invention, or an action changes the course of history. The person who first lit a fire, the one who invented the first wheel, the one who first dared to cross the ocean, the one who took the first step on Mars. These people may not have been noticed in their own time, but their actions echoed for generations. However, this does not mean that each of us will change history. This is a tragic fact. Most of us will be forgotten. But within this fact lies a quiet and powerful beauty. Because a civilization is not made up only of heroes. A civilization is the sum of millions of nameless individuals who go to work every day, raise their children, help their neighbors. You may not change history, but you can pass something on to the next generation. A piece of knowledge, a skill, a value. You are a link in that massive chain called humanity. You are not the chain itself, but without you, the chain is incomplete. You are in this paradox. You may feel how large and complex the world is, how small your own impact is, but at the same time, you also know how real and important your impact is on your own family, friends, and community. The humanity of the future will understand this too. Perhaps the greatest heroism is not changing history, but being one of the nameless links that ensures that history continues. These deep thoughts show that the future is not just about technology, but also about meaning. But at the end of all these philosophical inquiries, there is a much more concrete reality awaiting us. And this concrete reality is perhaps the most surprising of all: success. On one hand, there is the whole story of humanity's relentless struggle for survival. Asteroids, radiation, vacuum, loneliness. But, on the other hand, after 20,000 years, there is a humanity that has overcome all these challenges, spread across the solar system, and eliminated the risk of being wiped out by a lave. Single planetary catastrophe. How can the greatest challenge be the end of challenges? This is the frontier paradox. Because the human mind works best when there is a frontier to conquer, a problem to solve, a goal to reach. This is the engine that has pushed us forward for thousands of years. But what happens when that frontier disappears? When every corner of the solar system is known, when the biggest engineering problems are solved, when survival is largely guaranteed, what motivates a civilization? This is a crisis humanity has never faced before, a crisis of purpose. It is a tragic irony. Everything done to save the species may make it harder for individuals to find meaning. But in this void, humanity's greatest opportunity is born. Because when survival is no longer the primary concern, civilizations can direct their energies to deeper questions: art, philosophy, understanding the nature of consciousness. Perhaps future societies will measure their wealth not by economic power, but by the depth of the art they produce, by the courage of the questions they ask. You live a small version of this paradox. When you reach a goal in your life, you experience a moment of satisfaction, but immediately after comes that feeling of emptiness. So, what now? Two. The humanity of the future will ask this question on a civilizational scale. And perhaps they will find the answer not in conquering the universe outside, but in starting to explore the universe inside, consciousness itself. This brings us to the next contrast, the difference between memory and myth. On one hand, there is the fact that future civilizations will have archives so vast we cannot even imagine them, a nearly perfect record of history. They can store every event, every person, every decision. But, on the other hand, there is the fact that as time passes, history inevitably transforms from data into a story, from a fact into a myth. How can it be that while we can know everything, we end up choosing to believe only what we feel? This is one of the most fundamental working principles of the human mind. We think not in facts, but in narratives. After 20,000 years, a child in Saturn's orbit can learn everything about the 21st century. But what will this information mean to them? Probably no more than what we feel about ancient Rome, historically important, but emotionally distant. And that child will remember not the facts about us, but the stories, the myths of the first astronaut's heroism, the legends of the courage of the first to set foot on Mars. This is a tragic loss, because all the complexity, all the nuance of reality is lost in this process. But within this loss lies the strongest mortar that holds civilizations together, a common origin myth. Every civilization needs a beginning story, and we will be the origin myth of the humanity of the future. Perhaps they will misunderstand us, perhaps they will romanticize us, but they will remember us, because every story needs a beginning. You do this in your own life. When you look back at your past, you don't remember every detail. What stays in your mind are the key moments, the turning points that define who you are. Your memories become myths. The humanity of the future, when looking back at its own past, will see our era as a turning point, the moment it all began. And finally, this entire philosophical journey brings us back to the most fundamental contrast: change and continuity. On one hand, there is the fact that in 20,000 years, humanity will change beyond recognition. Our biology, our culture, our technology, the worlds we live in, almost nothing will remain the same. But, on the other hand, there is the fact that despite all this change, some things will stubbornly remain the same. How can it be that while everything changes, some things can stay the same? This is the most mysterious and hopeful aspect of the human story. Perhaps a descendant of ours, 20,000 years from now, will not have the same biology as us. But perhaps when they look at the stars, they will feel that same awe that we feel. Perhaps at the birth of their child, they will feel that same love that we feel. Perhaps after a loss, they will feel that same grief that we feel. And most importantly, perhaps when they look at the universe, they will ask that same question we ask: what's next? This is a tragic loneliness. Billions of years later, trillions of kilometers away, still struggling with the same fundamental questions. But within this is that invisible thread that connects all of humanity across time and space: continuity. Perhaps being human does not mean having a specific form. Perhaps being human means continuing to ask certain questions. You are part of this continuity. 20,000 years ago, your ancestors looked at the fire and wondered about the stars. Today, you look at a screen and wonder about the future. The questions may be different, but the act of wondering is the same. And perhaps This is the only thing that will withstand all storms. Now we know. The future of humanity is not a simple line of progress. It is a journey full of paradoxes, both tragic and beautiful, both frightening and hopeful. We have learned that home must be both abandoned and carried. We have seen that identity must both diversify and lead to conflict. We have understood that progress can be both salvation and loss. And perhaps most importantly, we have realized how precious, fleeting moments are in the face of the overwhelming vastness of time. As we approach the end of this long and deep journey of thought, all these pieces come together to form one grand picture, and that picture whispers to us an ultimate truth about our future. We have made a giant journey of 20,000 years into the future. But I haven't told you the biggest secret. What if the past is not as far away as we think? Einstein's equations open a door that seems impossible. At the event horizon of black holes, time almost stops. Perhaps the door is there. In our next journey, we will challenge time itself. Are you ready?